and welcome in to another episode of Heat of the Moment. My name is Micah. I am joined, as always, by my fellow host and friend Lino. And today, Heat fans, we are going to be doing what will essentially work as our off-season primer. So hopefully by the end of this show, you'll have an idea of what the Heat salary situation is, what assets they have to acquire players, what mechanisms within the CBA they might be able to use to bring in some talent to this team, and who could potentially be on the way out, depending on how things go. So to start it off, we actually have a couple other things kind of more in the news and notes category to cover. First off, we have Kel'el Ware, our very own rookie, was named to second team all rookie, the third most prestigious award a rookie can receive. But cool to see Kel'el get some recognition there. Lino, did you have any reactions to Kel'el getting that honor?
Yeah, I had one reaction, and that it's Spo's fault he didn't make it into first team. He plays a month extra of basketball. I guarantee he gets the 10 more votes to pass Alex Sarr.
That's
And
fair.
I'm excited for the guy. I always knew that he could do it. I always had him as my rookie of the year. Not really, but I was really excited from what we saw from him this season. I'm glad that he's on at least some kind of accolade here and at the end of the season. It's a great thing to build upon for the rest of his career, but especially going into next year, as he's going to play a major role in whatever roster we probably have moving forward. And yeah, I thought he had such an impressive season, especially given that he got out of the gates a little late due to lineup decisions and roster choices. But overall, I think he made the most of his moments, and I'm really excited about whatever he's got next for us.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but Alex Sarr over Kel'el Ware is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, Alex Sarr must have like surged to end the year and I just missed it or something. False. He was 13 points a game on 48% true shooting. League average is like 57%. And for a big, it's even higher. Kalel was 9 points a game, so just 4 points per game fewer on 60% true shooting, above league average. Also, every advanced stat essentially favors Kalel by a wide margin. And also, Kalel was on a real basketball team. Like the
Yeah.
Wizards, I mean, you could argue, like, yeah, that hurt Sar to not have good players around him, but Kalel actually had to play in like serious games with stakes. So, I mean, it's probably kind of hilarious that we're arguing about who should make second team all rookie, but I'm a little upset for Kalel. He deserved that spot, but it is what it is. Speaking of upset, this time a year ago, Pat Riley had his end of season press conference. He called out Jimmy Butler and basically started what would be one of the worst seasons in Heat history. Not saying it was all his fault, but that's how it started. So just a couple weeks ago, since our last show, Pat Riley had his end of season press conference for the 2025 season. Thankfully, much less eventful. To me, the couple things that really stood out, because you're always trying to kind of read between the lines, he can only say
Mhm.
so much. I feel like Kevin Durant is legitimately an option for the Heat. I believe it was Ethan Skolnick of Five Reasons Sports asked Pat Riley pretty directly if he would be open to bringing in another aging star to play alongside Bam and Tyler, like they have with Shaq and Jimmy and different guys. And he pretty emphatically said yes. So I think Durant is definitely kind of who the assumption was there. Lino and I's favorite section, the ribbit section, where Pat Riley went on like a weird journey to basically just explain they're probably not going to run it back. RIB it, run it back.
Yeah.
It. I'm
That
not
did
sure.
that did unsurmountable damage to the Pat Riley hive. Whoever's still there, that probably nuked that building of fans
It's
that might still
a,
support him.
a warhead straight to Pat Riley Island.
Yeah, so bad, dude. And like, it's a funny commercial. I get what he was referring to. I love the Liberty Bibbity commercials, but
Yeah,
not the right time, brother.
I
Like,
just
please.
I just love thinking of all the people that haven't seen that commercial,
Mhm.
because if you hadn't, it just sounds like Pat Riley saying "ribbit, ribbity,
But what I
Ribbit.
will say, if you haven't seen that commercial, I don't want to know your basketball opinion because that means you have not been watching basketball games.
True. It
The
is
Liberty
on
Mutual
every
commercial is in
game.
between every timeout. So
That's a great point by you, actually. If you are watching hoops, you will have seen that. But yeah, so that was interesting. The Tyler contract situation got brought up. Of course, that's
mhm.
going to be something people are interested in because Tyler is currently up for an extension. And of course, that was the big issue with Jimmy. But it sounds like Pat's getting out ahead of this one. So they've already spoken with Tyler. They don't have to do it this season. They could do it next season. Tyler seems okay with that. I don't foresee it being anything that'll be nearly as venomous as the Jimmy situation was. And then the last thing that I thought was like an interesting tidbit, because this is something we assume as people that follow the league, but we actually got firm confirmation on. Ira Winderman, I believe, asked him why didn't they look for a younger package, basically, to get back for Jimmy to kind of do a reset, essentially. And Pat, to his credit, very matter of factly, it's just like we were only allowed to negotiate with one team. Like we really could only get Jimmy to agree on one team other than the team he wanted. So he's basically couldn't say Phoenix, but he's like he wouldn't do Phoenix. We finally got him to look at Golden State, and then we could only deal with Golden State, which we all assume that's how this stuff works. But it was pretty interesting to see a president of a team be like, "Yeah, we literally couldn't trade with anybody else. It didn't matter."
Yeah, yeah, I appreciated the candidacy, and I thought that it was a pretty good press conference overall. I really
Mhm.
enjoyed, what Pat shared with us as far as their goals, how they missed them, and what the plans were moving forward. I thought, I'm glad that he came out and just said, our goal is not to just run this back as is. Like we have some ideas of what we want to change. We're going to try them. We're not blowing it up or tanking, but we're just going to try to retool around these guys that we still believe in that just need some help. So I think that's really all we have as an option. So it's not like he said anything very insightful in that regard, but it's nice to hear that the front office doesn't sound as delusional as we may have feared going into this offseason.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that brings us now to this offseason. So, Heat fans, of course, our offseason started about as early as anybody's because we were swept in the first round. So, as early as any playoff team, I guess I should say. So, we will have a lot of time to discuss different scenarios, different things that could happen. So, we're going to take this episode just to give you guys a preview of all the different options, all the different weapons the Heat have at their disposal to, like we're talking about, hopefully reconfigure this team to make it better than a 37 win 10 seed. And of course, like everything, it's going to start with the finances. Okay. So, Miami right now, their projected salary for next year, and this is including their first round draft pick. And I should say, this is a shout out to Bobby Marks. I listened to him, Nate Duncan, a few different guys to try and get my salary cap apron knowledge up so I could bring you guys some accurate information. But according to Bobby Marks, with the Heat's draft pick included for next season, they're at around $185 million. For reference, the tax threshold is about $188 million, a little under that. So they're right up at the tax line. So they don't really have any cap space, but they're significantly under the first apron, which, if you guys don't know, the first apron has some penalties for reaching it. It's about 195 million. So the Heat are about 10 million under that. And then at 207 million is the dreaded second apron. That's what the Bucks, the Suns, the Celtics, teams that have all these really difficult financial decisions to make coming up. That's what they're dealing with. So the Heat certainly won't be a second apron team. I don't even think they'll be a first apron team, but I could see them dipping into the tax potentially. And a lot of that is going to depend on probably their most important free agent, which is Davion Mitchell. So Davion Mitchell, Heat fans know him and love him. He is a restricted free agent. If anybody doesn't know what that means, essentially means any team can offer him a contract, but the Heat reserve the rights to match it. So a team could offer him 10 million, 100 million. Davion can sign it, and then the Heat have, I believe it's like a 72-hour window to match it. So we can't really know what Davion will get paid this offseason, but that will determine a lot of what the Heat are able to do. There's certain exceptions like taxpayer mid-levels, things like that the Heat could use to acquire different players, but will they have access to them or not could depend on Davion. So Lino, Davion's coming off making about $5 million a year. His qualifying offer, which is kind of what you have to offer a restricted free
Mhm.
agent, is would be like a 1 year, $8.8 million deal. So, Lino, in terms of what you think about Davion, is there a number that you'd ideally like to get him at? Is there a number you wouldn't go past? And then, are you thinking 1 year, multiple years? What do you think the Heat's priority should be with Davion?
I definitely think we should do our best to bring him back as long as it keeps us, well under the first apron. Um, Getting over the tax line, I think we're just competitive enough for that to be worthwhile. Like, if we were just absolutely terrible, there'd just be no reason for us to be in the tax like that. But,
Hold on, we
but
have a breaking news
we have
alert.
breaking news, breaking news. My cats are fighting again. But yeah, I think that Davion's value to this team is worthwhile to keep us competitive with this core. And I think as long as we're not getting anything outrageous, and I don't think anybody's coming in and offering him, 3 years, 60 million. That would be kind of crazy. But if he gets, what, somewhere between an annual contract of like 8 to 15. 15 is really pushing it for me. I was like, at that point, we really have to ask ourselves, what's going on and is this really worth it? And that would really kind of hamstring us with the Tyler situation too, and what that means for his contract negotiations. Hopefully, we can get him back on that qualifying offer, but I do think someone's probably going to offer him something between 10 and 15. And I think we should keep him if it's in that range. But if it goes above that, or if someone just makes an absolute overpay because they have nothing better to do, that would be really disappointing to lose him. But we definitely can't take this team into the first or second apron as is currently.
Yes, yeah, that's all well said. And Davion, for all those reasons, is essentially the first domino that we'll be watching for this Heat team. And the reason is if Davion commands a larger salary, the Heat might have to do more in terms of moving off salary. They might have to attach picks to Terry Rozier's contract, do something on Duncan Robinson's contract. We've talked about this some during the season, but how much Davion's market commands will have a lot to do with what the Heat are able to do with their other players. So yeah, I'm with you. I would like to not go over 10 million a year. Something like 3 years, 25 million would be like awesome.
Hmm.
And I think it's possible. Like I remember last offseason, Haywood Highsmith kind of just came back to the Heat by default. They're just like other guys signed other places. There just wasn't a huge market for him. And then there were a lot of smart basketball analysts that were like, how is Haywood Highsmith on this contract right now? Like, why didn't a playoff contender send Miami a few seconds to get him? Like, it's such a good deal. So there's a world in which I think I would guess teams around the league kind of side eye success in Miami at this point
Hmm.
after different guys have left and struggled to where they might think like, okay, Davion, that was like one good half season in Miami. Let's see,
Yeah.
how much you can prove it on a longer term deal.
Yeah,
So
if we could get him on like 3 years at like 9, that would be sick. That would be really awesome. I don't know if it's in his best interest to sign that long of a contract. I might just take that qualifying offer and then try again next offseason. But yeah.
it is worth noting he has not made a ton of money in his career, so it
Mhm.
could be a situation where a longer term deal is more appealing to him, even if it's at less of an annual salary. But Davion, Heat fans, that'll be a big one to watch. Obviously, I think anyone listening to this will want to keep him, and I do think the Heat will make it a priority. But there are some situations like the PJ Tucker situation just a few off seasons ago. Pat Riley at the end of season press conference called PJ a cornerstone, and then he was playing in Philly the next season because Philly just offered him a huge deal that ended up being an awful contract. It was smart by the Heat not to do that, but sometimes you just get priced out. A couple other guys to watch out for in terms of free agents or potential free agents. Duncan Robinson. For the Heat, Duncan Robinson is going to be at the center of this entire summer, which is hilarious given that Duncan's kind of just been here as long as anyone except Bam, I believe.
Yeah.
So, Duncan's situation, I'm about to get into some very nerdy salary cap stuff. But so there's two things to watch out for Duncan. One, Duncan has an early termination option. This is essentially like a player option. So Duncan can be like, I want to early terminate my contract. I want to become a free agent. Well, Duncan is owed like $20 million next year. So I think that's very unlikely. I don't think Duncan's going to early terminate his contract. Once he decides to not early terminate, then the Heat have the option to waive Duncan. And that is because his contract is partially guaranteed. Just for broad strokes, he's about to make around 20 million if they guarantee the contract. If they waive him, they can basically pay him 10 million to leave. Will the Heat do that? Probably not. But as we will talk about going forward, Duncan's contract could provide a lot of salary cap relief to teams that traded with the Heat, right? Because you can trade for Duncan at 9 million, then you can waive him and you could stretch it and it would basically be like 3 million a year off your books. That could be very advantageous for a team in the second apron, like the Suns, like the Bucks, like teams that the Heat would like to trade with. So Duncan, we all love him. I would not be surprised if he is moved this offseason, and we'll talk about some potential fake trades with that scenario.
Yeah, I think it's imperative that he gets moved one way or the other, whether it be from a financial situation or really just a personnel situation. I've loved everything that Duncan has brought to the table for the Miami Heat up to this point, but ultimately, I don't think that his career is really going to grow here much further if he wants it to. Um, Nor do I think it can, as far as what this team needs in that position right now. The money situation, the contract has been what it is. You know, at one point in time, it looked like a great contract, and then it looked like an awful contract, and now it's just kind of like it's a somewhat expiring deal that will be helpful to use in these kind of trade pieces. I think there's actually, and not even from a negative standpoint, I think there's actually some teams that could really use Duncan Robinson right now. His shooting, his expertise, his experience in the playoffs. You know, these are things that some of these younger teams could really use. And then his, salary and his expiring contract could be really helpful for some of these teams who really got to start dumping money pretty soon.
Absolutely. I mean, you saw what somebody like Malik Beasley just did for
Mm-hmm.
that young Detroit team. Duncan
Oh
could
yeah.
definitely do that, at least on offense for a team like that. So, and like you were saying with the Heat, it could be a situation where they fully guarantee the deal, they don't trade him, but then that's a $20 million expiring contract. Like you said, that's still a useful player. So the Heat, that could definitely be something they could move at the deadline, even if they take his contract into the season. A couple other quick notes. Alec Burks is a free agent. I think you and I both talked about on the last episode. If they can get him back at a minimum, 100% do it. He was awesome
Really
this
solid.
year. And then all the two-way guys, Drew Smith, Isaiah Stevens, Josh Christopher, they're basically all available to either. I think at least Drew Smith has one more 2-year eligible, one more year of 2-year eligibility or two-way eligibility. And then Kashad Johnson, who the Heat converted from a two-way contract to a standard deal, he's also partially guaranteed. So he's another one of those guys that could be included in like a Phoenix deal that could save Phoenix some money. But we're
Mhm.
getting really into the weeds with that. So those are essentially the free agents to keep in mind. Now we'll move on to assets, right? So if a star becomes available, whether it's Durant, Giannis, Zion, Ja, whoever it might be, what do the Heat really have to offer to these teams, right? So everyone listening to this knows our players. You know, Bam is a great asset. Tyler has really upped his value now. Wiggins is probably fair. So you know the players, but outside of players, what do they have? So first of all, they have the 20th pick in this upcoming draft. Not nothing. They also, because they have a pick in this draft, have 3 tradable firsts. So they could do their 20th pick in 2025, a first round pick in 2029, and then another first in either 2031 or 2032. It's obviously terrifying to think about trading a pick that is that far away, but if the right guy became available, could be something the Heat were interested in. And then, like we talked about with some of the like Duncan and others, they have almost 60, or I think they have over $60 million in expiring contracts, right? So that's Terry Rozier, that's 26 million in expiring. Duncan, if they keep him, that's another 20 million in expiring. So they could get up to some huge numbers. And that's what teams looking to rebuild and restart, that's what they want, is expiring contracts. They want young good players too, no doubt, but they want expiring contracts that aren't going to be on their books, that are going to provide them cap relief. So, Lino, we've set the table. We know what the Heat have. We know what options are available to them as far as their different players they can move, picks they can move. When you look at this team, and we'll start small scale. Obviously, a star would help, but what does this team need? Are there specific skill sets you think this roster could really benefit from employing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the two-way skill set is going to be one of the marquee things that we can find in the offseason this year. I truly think we could benefit. I mean, after losing somebody like Jimmy Butler and having a lot of question marks about what Andrew Wiggins is really going to be able to do for this team consistently, um, that points to the fact that we need wing depth and we need wing talent at the top of the key or at the top of the roster. And so, if we can go out there and get a wing that a small forward, power forward, just someone strong on both sides of the ball, or at least just not a detriment on one side of the ball, some dominant, shot creation would be also something that would be really nice. I think Tyler had such an amazing year, but we saw how he got targeted and he was still able to, take what he could get throughout the playoffs. But ultimately, in order to relieve that pressure and allow him to be probably the 1B, 2A player that he actually is, we'll need someone who can really score on anybody at any point in time. And so that points me to a couple of guys. There's obviously Giannis. He's incredible on both sides of the ball, and he's a very dominant scorer. And he would make things a lot easier for Tyler Hero, of course, and Tyler Hero would make things a lot easier for him. Um, there's guys like KD, wing player, amazing scorer. Not a defensive mastermind by any means, and he's getting up there in age, but ultimately what he brings to the table is the exact skill set that we could really use. Just someone who can go get a freaking bucket. We have one bucket getter on our whole team right now, and he's been awesome, but we need more than that. We need options. And I think with the realization that Bam is probably never going to evolve into an elite offensive player in that way, obviously he contributes to what could be an elite offense. He's just not that kind of scorer at all three levels. That kind of investment would be really important for this roster and somebody who'd be worthwhile these assets that we have. So those are the two guys at the top of my list right now. I don't know what the deal is right now with Zion. That's somebody who also comes to mind as far as a big fish that we could try to get, who seems pretty disgruntled. And I really don't know what New Orleans is trying to do in general, but hopefully it starts with them trying to move him somewhere and somewhere warm. But those are the things that come to mind. Those are the skill sets that come to mind. Where are you at in your, going fishing outlook right now?
Right. Well, I'm starting with some small bait. I'm in a local pond. There are no big fish here, but there are acquirable fish. There are fish ripe for the picking that I think have skill sets that could help the Heat, maybe in some small ways, maybe in some bigger ways. So to me, point of attack defense is very key for Miami, especially in the backcourt, because as you and I both know, Tyler Hero is the most important offensive player on the team, and he is not a great defender. So, in my
Mm,
opinion, you don't really want situations where he's out there with another guard that is defensively compromised. So,
yeah.
we saw a lot of lineups with it was Tyler and Alec Burks, or Tyler and Duncan Robinson, or Tyler and Terry Rozier, and that had so many issues. It caused Bam and Ware and Wiggins have to cover so many things. So even if the Heat keep Davion, I think another good defensive guard would be really helpful to have off the bench. Some guys I like in that spot, maybe at like a veterans minimum, which is I think like 3.5 or 4.5 million, or a biannual exception, which is like 5 million. Dante Exum, he should, the health stuff is rough, but if he can stay healthy, he's a great defender. He's got some playmaking juice. It's not like he can't dribble. Bruce Brown, former Miami Hurricane, was starred in his role for the Nuggets, had a down season last year, but again, these are minimum guys. They're not going to be perfect, but I think he could play some defense. He could help with some ball handling. Honestly, could function kind of similar to how Davion did. Can revitalize his career is what I'm hoping for. Another guy that's probably going to be a little more expensive, but I do think could be really helpful is Dennis Schroeder. The Heat struggle with paint touches. He gets to the basket so well. He's a very active, very good defender, I think. So that would be nice. So any of those names stand out to you? Any of those you kind of prefer over one or the other?
I just think it's hilarious that we start talking about what this team needs. And I'm like, we need Zion Williamson, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kevin Durant. And you're like, Dennis Schroeder would be really nice.
This is what they've done to me. This is the
This team really needs Dennis Schroeder. That's really going to get us out of the mud here. Yeah, I mean, some of those guys seem nice, but ultimately, I guess it depends on how you look at the word need. Like, what do you need them for? Like, to make the team maybe make a little bit more sense? Yes, those guys would probably help make this roster look a little less silly, maybe. But I think if you actually, I guess from my approach and my perspective, if you add a star to this team, a lot of these other guys' roles make a lot of sense. Like, make things a lot easier because so many of them like have to step up and do so much because there's not a blue chip star on this roster right now. And so I think I still value what a lot of our guys have to bring to the table. Like if we got, a really incredible guard, I don't really even know who would be out there for us to get at this point. But Davion Mitchell as a backup, he is that backup point of attack guard there. Even if we could go get somebody like Drew Holiday, like that's somebody who's probably, I can't remember what his contract looks like right now, but that's somebody who would fill that role and it would make Davion's job make a lot more sense, or vice versa. And yeah, I just I don't know. I think what this team needs is somebody who can really overhaul what this team even looks like right now by their
yeah,
presence.
that's
And
fair.
anything short of that just kind of feels like I don't know if we need it because I don't know if it really helps that much.
Yeah, well, and I like I said, I have big fake trades for the end of the show that we
I
can
don't
get
like that you call
into.
them fake. I was like potential trades.
Hypothetical. Um, but yeah, I think what I'm thinking of as far as like the Heat are going to use a minimum contract. They might use an
Yeah,
annual exception deal. And so I'm thinking along the lines of I get the Shams notification and I'm like, ooh, nice. Like I remember when I
yeah.
got the PJ Tucker notification, which was pretty unexpected that summer. I was like,
Mhm.
ooh, I like that. And not because I mean PJ Tucker was honestly way better than I could have ever imagined for us, but it was what he did for Bam and Jimmy. To have
Yeah.
that guy that could play the four and switch like that, it raised everybody else. So I'm looking for like kind of perfect puzzle pieces, I think, to make our key guys look better. And
Mhm.
so again, that was why I'm like, okay, if we can keep Tyler on the court with a good defensive guard for every minute he's out there, I think that would help him so much on both ends. He would have less difficult assignments on offense, but then also be able to have more energy on offense.
Yeah.
Sorry, less difficult on defense. Another thing I think this team really needs, and this is apparent if you've ever watched the Heat on offense, is creation and
Mhm.
creation of almost any kind from almost anywhere. So the idea of the Terry Rozier trade was to get another ball handler to have this dynamic, almost recreate the Dion Waiters, Goran Dragic 7-11 days, like this drive and kick, both can shoot threes. It would have been a lot of fun. Um, I don't expect Terry Rozier to become that guy again suddenly. We had a whole season of him struggling, so it's hard to anticipate a bounce back. So I again started looking at who are some guys that might be around the minimum, maybe around the taxpayer mid level, that could potentially help the Heat with some offense in like a 6 man role. Because you and I both know, like we went from Dwayne Wade 6 man, Goran Dragic 6 man, Tyler Hero 6 man to right. Like
Yeah.
Jaime last year was cool. This year did not really work. So I'm thinking who are some guys that could come off the bench and just, settle the troops, create good looks. So of course, whenever you're talking about a backup point guard, you have to mention a Jones brother. So Tyus Jones, Trey Jones, either of those guys, I think just to set the table, run some point, could be helpful. Malcolm Brogdon, another guy with a lot of health issues, obviously, but when he's on the court, he's still pretty decent. He can get downhill, he can shoot it. He's a smart guy, knows where to be on defense, not necessarily elite on that end. Also had D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo
I was
Russell,
gonna ask you if you would take a shot at D'Angelo
I
Russell.
could see the 35-point game in March where everyone's like, start him alongside Tyler. Like, he's ready.
Oh
This
my
is our
god.
second star. And another guy who's probably going to be too expensive, but Karis LeVert is another guy that, I mean, he's just the
Mhm.
perfect 6 man. He's a good defender for his position. He can create shots. He's a streaky shooter, but when he's rolling, he can really flip a game.
Yeah, I've
There
seen
any
that he got paid 16 million last year. You think he's gonna be closer to that 20?
It could be.
18 maybe. It's
I guess
still
my
even at 16, if he came back at that, still too expensive for us, I feel like.
Yeah, it would have to be a situation where he either really wants to play for the Heat or maybe he takes like we're able to somehow get maybe we lose Davion in the situation so we're under the tax and we can offer
Mhm.
him the non-tax pair mid-level, which is like
Yeah.
14 million, and maybe it's for 3 years and that's nobody would give him a third year, something like that.
Yeah.
But he could definitely be helpful.
Ooh.
Are there any like six men type guys you kind of had in mind? And it could be for trade too. They don't necessarily have to be free agents, but that you think could kind of slot in well for this team?
Those are kind of the main guys. Karis LeVert would be, I feel like, a bit of a pipe dream. I really like Trey Jones. I'd love to see him in a Heat jersey. I think there's something there that could be super useful for us. Pretty much those guys. What do you think about Nikhil Alexander Walker?
Oh, I would love it. Is he a free agent?
Yeah, it looks like he's going to be an undrafted free agent going
Wow.
into next year, which they're going to pay him. But
Yeah, he's gonna get paid. But yeah, I mean, if there was some situation, I can't really come up with it. But like, I guess technically, if you let Davion walk and then you like trade Duncan's contract into nothingness, basically, then you could
mhm,
start to free up some real money. And yeah,
yeah,
man, Nikhil, that
that'd
would
be
be
sick. That
great.
was like the name that popped out of this list. I just looked up like the
Yeah.
free agents going into next year, and that's one that would be very exciting.
Yeah, if anyone is unaware, he plays for the Wolves. He's playing right now in the conference finals. Elite defender. His shot making has gotten a lot better. He's a good 3-point shooter. He's actually Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's cousin, for anybody that doesn't know. But yeah, I could see him flourishing with the Heat, and again, could kind of maybe take some of what Davion's doing as being that elite defender beside Tyler. If in this situation we were to lose Davion. The other spot that I think would be pretty important for the Heat to shore up this offseason is the third big. So
Hmm.
I think the Heat are comfortable with Bam and Kalel. I think they'll be starting beside each other next season unless a big move is made. But regardless, I think a third big is still needed. Kevin Love will be on the roster, but it seems like his days of contributing on the court are probably over. So I'm thinking, is there a guy ideally that could shoot so he could play beside Kalel and Bam, but still stretch the floor a little bit? A couple of names that came to mind. The first one is like my favorite of all of these, Gershon Yabusele,
Oh my
who if
gosh.
you guys watched the Olympics last year, he was awesome. He like dunked on LeBron and was hitting every three he took. And the Sixers were awful, so nobody really paid attention, but he was very solid. He shot
Mhm.
39% from three. He's a good rebounder. He's a good defender. He doesn't provide like a lot of rim protection, but if he's playing alongside Bam and Ware, that's fine. He doesn't necessarily need to. So he was one of my favorites as like that kind of swing big that could play with either of those guys.
Yeah, I love that guy. It was so fun watching him in the Olympics just bang with Hall of Famers. And yeah, if the Sixers didn't suck, his season probably would have been even more of a highlight, but nobody was trying to watch any of their games after November. And yeah, that would be a really fun. He does kind of give that Heat culture energy. Like he does kind of have that kick
He
ass
does.
feel to him that would be really awesome to have. And honestly, would probably resurge Heat culture a little bit more as it's kind of in the pits of hell right now as far as reputation goes. Another guy that comes to mind, I was also kind of in that vein of a big that can shoot. Don't let Kalen hear this. If you're listening, turn your ears off. But I wouldn't mind giving Torian Prince a shot. He
Yeah,
shot like 44% from three last season.
he
So,
can shoot.
you know, if we're just looking for like 5, 10 minutes of a backup, like big, just get somebody in there who can stretch the floor and let the rest of the offense work. Um, that would be a guy that I think we could get for pretty cheap for one, and someone who can actually like consistently shoot pretty well.
Yeah, no, I like the Torian Prince shout out. I mean, yeah, he can shoot. I don't think he can do anything else at a high level at this point. But honestly, the Heat could just take some shooting,
Yeah, I was like, we
if
got
nothing else.
nothing. We have zero at that spot right
Yeah,
now. So
yeah. So, and of course, we'll go over this. We'll say all these names, and then more than likely, it'll become an undrafted free agent that the Heat pick up, and he's probably going to be better than a lot of these guys. But
I did want to say that you mentioned this earlier. You know, we kind of skipped over the two-way guys. Drew Smith should be coming back last year or next year, and he was on the verge of having a really good season. I mean,
Hmm.
I think he got hurt in like preseason, but it felt like Drew Smith was about to really turn a corner. And as a backup point of attack point guard, that would be pretty sick.
Yeah.
So some of this stuff may actually, show up for us here moving forward as far as the G League mill that we run right now. I don't know. I think all the other guys are pretty far off, but that's a guy who's pretty close. And if he's able to get going, I can't remember what his timeline looks like right now because I believe it was an Achilles tear
Yeah,
or
it
they,
was Achilles, and I want to say it was around this like late December. So
was it? I don't know
it
why in
will.
my brain it was like the first week of basketball.
I think it was. So we'll see. I do love that he has that extra year of 2A eligibility, though, because
Mhm.
hopefully they'll sign him to that. He can rehab as long as he needs to. And then if he starts playing in games and looks great, then they can convert him
Yeah,
to that standard deal like they were going to last year before the injury. And by all accounts, Drew Smith's like an awesome guy who's overcome a
yeah,
lot. So I really hope that's what happens. And that's a great call out by you. And yeah, maybe Kashad Johnson is able to contribute a little more. We really didn't get to see him in the regular season.
Mm, I,
um,
I I was tuned into those garbage minutes with Kashad Johnson. He's still a little far, but
yeah,
the energy's there and the desire to play good basketball is there. It's
yeah,
just a bit of deer in the headlights
yeah.
every time he touches the floor right now.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, and of course, this is all just us looking at outside guys that could come in. Maybe the point of attack and the shooting will just be solved by Pella just taking the next
Mhm.
step. He
Yeah,
showed great defensive flashes, and was a shooter coming out of college. So maybe that's something he would be able to do. But now, Heat fans, it is time to go off the rails a little bit. We will always be cocky Heat fans, even in the darkest times. So it is time to talk about acquiring star players. The thing the Heat do as well as probably any franchise except the Lakers, who are I don't know how they keep doing what they do, but the Heat can acquire talent even in this new CBA that makes it a lot harder. There has to be trades. There's basically no free agents. I do trust the Heat can get guys. So Lino, I want to start with a little power ranking for you. Okay, I want you to rank the guys I'm about to list in order of your value. So like number one is the guy you want to trade the least. Okay, so these are our young guys, right? So we have Khalil Ware, we have Jaime Jaquez, we have Nikola Jovic, and we'll throw Pella Larson in there as well. So of those four guys, Phoenix calls you up. They're like, "Hey, I want one of these guys in the Durant deal. Which one are you like? I can't do it with this guy. Or it would hurt me the most to include him. Who's number one?
okay. Just give me the list again. Khalil, Pele,
Jovic and Jaquez.
Jovic, Hotcast. The main guy I don't want to trade or that I'd love to keep the most is probably Khalil Ware. I think he has had the fastest ramp up to actually visualizing potential. After that, I'd probably go Jovic. I think he's kind of had a bit of a slower track, but I think we can all see what kind of player he can be for this roster. Injuries really mucked up his season this year, and I was really hoping that he'd be able to play a little bit more consistently going up into the playoffs. That just didn't happen. I think the hand injury took like an extra week or two, and then he just got thrown into the fire there, which is a little unfair to him, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes. And then after that, it probably goes Pele and then Jaquez. Jaquez is probably, completely bottomed out for me as far as value, mostly because it's kind of gone to worst case scenario expectations. Like it's not outside of the realm of possibility of what we expected from Jaime as far as being an older guy coming out of the draft, maybe being a flash of a pan in that first year and then not being able to adjust after the sophomore slump. But we'll see. We'll definitely see. But that is the order that I have them in. Kalel I'm just so ecstatic about the future of his career right now.
Yeah.
But how would you organize our young players and their value?
I would have them the same, and I think that's how their value would be perceived around the league as well,
Mhm.
is in that same order. So, with that being said, let's start with some hypotheticals. Okay, so you're the Phoenix Suns on the Miami Heat. I know you need to trade Durant. I come to you. Not lowballing like I did with Lillard. I'm starting with a solid offer off the bat. Okay, I'm giving you Andrew Wiggins, can fill in that small forward role. He's a good player. I'm giving you Duncan Robinson, that you can waive that contract. You can save yourself millions and millions of dollars in that second apron. I'm giving you Jaime Jaquez, who had a down year, but that's a young player that could help you potentially. I'm giving you the 20th overall pick in this draft, and I'm giving you a lottery protected 2029 first round pick. Do we have a deal? Can I have Kevin Durant, please?
No, no, you cannot. Matt
Okay.
Ishbia is asking for at least one. He's asking for those protections to get taken off of that pick, and he's
Yes.
probably asking for one more pick, and he's calling about Khalil Ware for sure.
Yes, I agree.
We need a center so badly, please.
So
There's probably
now,
no situation where we don't take Khalil Ware.
so I was gonna say, now let's switch roles. The counter offer has been sent. They're asking for Ware and an unprotected first, along with the 20th in this draft for Kevin Durant. Lino, if you are Pat Riley, do you take this deal? Do you kill your darling? Do you throw away Khalil Ware's potential, the potential of these first round picks, along with Wiggins and Duncan to form a big three of Kevin Durant, Tyler Hero, and Bam Adebayo?
Yuck, by the way.
Not in the East. That's like top three in the East.
That is a crazy big three. Um, Gosh, that is very, very tough. Not that Khalil Ware in particular as a player is like at the level where it's hard to trade for KD. It's really just the absence of a center. Like we've gone so long without having a good or even serviceable starting center to play next to Bam. Bam having to go back to the five after playing with Khalil just feels like it could really rub him the wrong way. Um, and so the absence of a center is maybe more crucial than the absence of Khalil Ware himself. I think I take the trade though. I think if that's like non-negotiable, Glowware has to go. I don't know who's the backup center over there in
They
Phoenix.
have Nick Richards, I believe.
If we can get Nick Richards back, that'd make me feel a lot better about it.
Sure.
Like just
Well, and
somebody.
and and my thing is being realistic. Like, I mean, you still want to keep Khalil ideally, but he would have to go to the backup five. Like, I don't think you can play Durant at the three now. Like,
No, yeah,
I
you're
don't think
right.
so. I mean, I think either way. I mean, it obviously would be nice to keep Khalil. Um, but yeah, I think that'll be the discussion. I think it'll be Nico versus Khalil in that like
Mhm.
young guy spot because apparently, according to Five Reasons Sports, Miami offered Jimmy, Nico, in a first
Yeah.
during the trade deadline. So I think they're willing to include Nico. But now the second layer to this, and the layer that I find honestly most interesting about acquiring Kevin Durant, Lino, if you were Pat Riley or if you just had full control of the future of the Heat, you get this deal finalized. You call Kevin Durant's agent. You said, "Hey man, welcome to the Heat." And he's like, I'm only signing off on this deal if I'm getting a max extension like Golden State gave your boy Jimmy when they traded for him. So am I getting 2 years, 120 like Jimmy did?
Yeah. Let's do it. 2 years, 120. We feel like we're going to be competitive. I think KD has still looked like KD through all of this. It's important to note that Jimmy did not look like 2020 Jimmy when it was time to pay him again. And he kind of didn't really look like it. He got hurt in the playoffs this year. I really don't want to bring it up just because he got hurt. I don't know if people really want to give him credit for playing on half a butt cheek. But he just like he couldn't be paid. Like we just couldn't do it. And now the Warriors gonna have a lot of decisions to make moving forward because he's old and injured. KD for the most part looks great. He had an awesome season. He can shoot the ball from anywhere. And if we're gonna try to win with this core, like the goal is to try to win in the next 2 years with what we thought KD's runway is anyways, then we might as well pay him. Like that's the guy we would be saving money for anyways. And so I really don't have a problem paying older stars. It's just a matter of like, were we going to pay Jimmy that same contract to be a 6 seed in the East? Like,
Yeah.
It's just kind of I can pay that kind of money if I feel like KD can really shoot our way through at least the conference finals for 2 years, and then he's
Yeah.
gone. Like, yeah, that's serviceable. I can live with being over the tax and in whatever apron we'd be in at that point. What about
Yeah.
you? Do you feel like you do it?
I've thought about it every day since we've been
Yeah.
eliminated. It is difficult for me. I think ultimately, if it's like it comes down to deal or no deal, like you get KD as long as you do this, I probably do it. It's
Mhm.
just 2 more years after this season, and, like, ideally, maybe they could get, like, a one-year extension, but it's probably gonna be 2, and I would still do it. I think one thing that's telling is I think Golden State would do it. I think they would trade Jimmy for Durant this summer if they could. I think they tried
Mhm.
to get Durant, that didn't work out, so then they got Jimmy. So, I mean, we know Kevin Durant is, and we know Jimmy Butler is, but it does seem like the playoff Jimmy, that crazy high he used to be able to get to, he might not be able to access anymore. Whereas I trust Durant to do
Yeah.
some version
And
of
that's the
what he
thing is like
was.
even if he can't, the goal would be to try to do it a couple years anyways. And it's one extra year that probably lines up with when we have to make decisions about Bam and Tyler. Similar to the Dallas situation where all those players' contracts kind of end at the same time in like 3 years. It's like, okay, at that point, we'll be making decisions anyways, and we'll be able to move off of it, whether it be as an expiring deal or we just let him play out his last season and we start retooling for the future at that point. So it's like, money's got to get spent anyways. There won't be really much else for us to save for. It's not like there's something else we would need to put on the roster if we added KD. It's like
Yeah.
that's kind of the guy we need to pay the most.
I would, in a perfect world, like if I was the Heat front office, try and communicate with KD, like, hey, we're gonna do this, but we need you to like tell Phoenix we're the only team that's gonna do this, so we don't have to give up everything. Because, like,
Yeah.
in my mind, if they sign him to a 2-year extension, that would end at the end of the 2028 season, which is like the
Hmm.
last year we could potentially owe that pick to Charlotte. So if we're not having to give up a pick past that to Phoenix in this deal, then I feel
Yeah.
great about it. Cause then it's like we got this 3-year window with Durant. Once that's over, then like you were saying, we might trade Bam and Tyler, fully tear down. We might have draft picks coming in to acquire the next guy to replace KD. There could be a lot of options. And maybe you could keep Ware in that situation too. Because
Hmm.
ultimately, why I think Durant is the most realistic star for Miami to target is because I don't think there's going to be a huge market for him. Because, like we're
Yeah.
talking about, you're going to have to give up stuff. You're going to have to pay him like a max guy for 2 more years after this upcoming season. And I think for a lot of teams, there will be other guys available. There will be Giannis's and who knows who else. There's a lot of teams exiting the playoffs early that didn't expect to. So I'm kind of hoping like we'll be Durant's like second pick, but Houston is going to go after someone else, and so then maybe we could swoop in and get
Hmm.
Durant. So we'll see. But cool. I think that was a good discussion. Um, okay, so we have to talk about Giannis a little bit before we wrap
Yeah.
up here.
Yeah.
So Heat fans, realistically, this is not happening. Like the problem with any Giannis trade is it has to be Bam, right? And if you're trading Bam for Giannis, then it's just Giannis and Tyler, and then that's like just the Bucks again, basically. Except instead of Tyler, it's Dame. But hypothetically, let's say in a magical world, Giannis is down for that. He's like, take me to Miami. I trust the front office to put a good team around me. Lino, you are the president of the Milwaukee Bucks. And I say to you, trade me Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bobby Portis, and I will give you, it's just for salary reasons. I will I will
Sick of
trade
that.
you
For Bobby Portis.
Bam Adebayo, Andrew Wiggins, Khalil Ware, the 20th pick in this draft, a 29th unprotected first, a 2031 unprotected swap, and a 2032 first for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Do we have a deal?
So that was Bam, Khalil Ware, all the picks. It's like every pick
Wiggins,
we can trade, right? And
yeah, and
Wiggins.
Wiggins, which like technically doesn't work. We'll pretend there's a third team that lets Khalil also be in the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. In a vacuum, I take that deal.
Right.
Bam's a great player to build around. You get a ton of picks.
Hold on, Lino, hold on. You're getting a call. This is the Houston Rockets. Have you heard of a Men
Oh, I'll
Thompson?
take whatever you have, actually. I was hoping that you would call before I had to keep talking to this old crazy guy in Miami. He's trying to give me a 2032 Miami Heat pick, which is bound to be a 19th or 20th pick of the draft, and I just can't be bothered to care about that. Yeah, that's a problem.
And seed. That is a preview, Heat fans, because Oklahoma City is probably going to be calling. I mean, maybe they
Mhm.
win the title and they don't, but they'll probably be calling. Houston will be calling. San Antonio, with the reigning rookie of the year and the second overall pick, will be calling. And and I hate to even say this out loud because it's going to trigger a trauma response in Heat fans. Even if Giannis says the Heat and the Heat only, in the same way that Dame did, it's still probably not going to happen. So
Yeah,
I think KD is like our. I'm not saying it's realistic, like it's going to happen, because lately it just seems like stuff like that doesn't happen for the Heat. Really, since the 2023 finals, it's just been perpetual disappointment and frustration for the most part. But I think Durant's the realistic one to look at. And then you never know what'll shake loose. You know, like we talked about, or like you mentioned, Drew Holiday is definitely going to be available. Porzingis is definitely going to be available. Trading with Boston makes me kind of sick, so I don't really
yeah.
want to do that. But maybe Zion, maybe Ja. As we're wrapping here, are there any other guys you want to throw out there, or kind of just any other things you want to be on the lookout for the offseason?
Yeah, I think we've named all the guys that I'm excited about at least trying to trade for. I think our trade issue is that we have 5 tradable picks, which is a great package in a vacuum. When you just say an NBA team has 5 picks they can give up for a star, and they're willing to give up as many of them as necessary to get the right kind of star, that's great. Except the reputation for the Miami Heat's picks bring us to probably the lowest value you can have for 5 picks. Like, nobody really feels like a 2031 Miami Heat pick, no matter how weird the future looks like for Miami. I can't remember the last time we had a top 10 pick.
Is a great point. I mean, they literally won 37 games this year and were the 10th seed, and they still only gave Oklahoma City the 15th pick.
Yeah, it's like you just have to be. And there's some bad front offices out there who maybe want to take that gamble. But if I'm out there and I'm looking at the Miami Heat, I'm not saying, yeah, this pick could really be something, because this team is going to try no matter what. Like, it's not like a situation where this team is going to be in a situation where they want to tank and they're actually going to start losing games. Like, you're never going to get a top 5 pick from Miami Heat pick, unless it's one of those weird draft situations where you're like the 11th and then you get the first round pick that should have been ours. Anyways, the
We probably
freaking
should
Dallas
have talked about
Mavericks.
that.
Yeah, it's the Dallas Mavericks. What, I don't know what they did to deserve this, but some dark voodoo, or Nico Harrison has went up to the pantheon and killed the basketball gods with his bare hands.
He
Clearly,
did. He did.
yeah, it's crazy. But with that being said, it's just so tough because I'm excited that we actually have picks to trade. I'm glad that we got to give away the one for this year, and that really frees some things up for us moving forward. It's just it's just not worth much, I think, to the league, and that's going to really hamstring us in any kind of trade conversations with teams who actually are often pretty bad in the holistic history of those teams, like OKC and like Houston, who, I don't think OKC is going to be very bad for a long time, but you can at least envision a team that's tanking again in the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah, that's kind of.
Especially in a Giannis trade, because they're gonna
Mhm.
have Giannis then, so
Yeah.
they're gonna be pretty great. The KD one, I think that's another reason that one could work, is because maybe the Suns look at it's like, hey, a 2032 Miami Heat pick. KD's definitely gone by then. Bam's a lot older. Who knows if Spo's there? Like maybe the wheels fall off at that point. So
Yeah.
we'll see. That would be quite the haul to give up for 37, 38-year-old Kevin Durant, whatever he is
Mhm.
now. But as we've talked about a lot on this podcast, we are fans as much as we are analysts. And as a fan, boy, I need some change. I
Mhm.
need some change.
Just a refresh.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Especially on offense. If they bring in someone with Kevin Durant's capabilities, forget the future, man. I've watched bad Heat teams before. I can do it again. I
Just give
did
me
it
two
this
or
year.
3 years of like an offensively sound basketball team.
Just give me above average.
Yeah, let me give
You
you
know
like
what I
the
would do for
13th,
12th?
14th best. Yeah,
You know what I would do for 12th on offense? 3 first round picks.
yeah,
I would do that.
I would do that pretty
All right.
comfortably.
Well, Heat fans, that's the offseason preview. We will do some draft coverage because we do have the 20th pick in the draft. There's a chance they keep it. So we'll start looking into some guys that the Heat might potentially look there. And of course, if we get any news and notes, we'll break those down for you guys. But as always, we appreciate you for tuning in. We're excited to go on this offseason adventure with all of you. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. That really helps us out. If you're on Spotify, Apple for podcasts, make sure you follow, leave comments if you'd like to. We love hearing from you guys. And yeah, for myself, Micah, my good friend Lino, we appreciate you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.